Okay, what we're going to learn today is how to use an old-fashioned technique of clamping so that we can take two boards and join them together to form a panel. We could do this using conventional clamps, but it's important to learn alternative techniques, and for a beginner woodworker, clamps are very, very expensive to outfit yourself with a lot of them, and this technique has been around for a long, long time. A lot of the time we don't need the real heavy pressure that clamps produce. We can get by with a less clamping pressure, in which case we can use simple nylon cord and wedges, and we can use that to form our clamping pressure. Okay, so a very, very cheap method of forming clamps. This is just a 2x4 that's been cut into what we call a bench horse, and that allows us to lift it up off the bench so we can wrap our cord around here and support our panel. The nice advantage of wedge and rope, wedge and cord technique is that the wedges will help to keep the panel flat. Conventional clamps don't generally do that. Okay, so what we need to do to get started is to always make sure that our panel is jointed on the two sides that will be glued together, and that we don't have any air gaps. So if we hold that up to the light, we'll see that there's no space between those two edges, and we know that we're good to glue it together. Always critically important in woodworking is to do dry runs, which means to do the same exact setup that you will do with glue, but first without glue. So it means you can learn the process. So what we want to do first is to make what's called a clove hitch. So we take our cord here and we unwrap it, we make sure that there are no knots in it anywhere, and we want to make a clove hitch to wrap around here. Now in the shop at the school here, we have a diagram for you to follow. Okay, this diagram can be found with the bench horses and the wedges and the cord. It's step by step. It's not the easiest thing to do the first time, but it's not hard either, and it's a very handy knot to use because it doesn't knot up, if that makes sense. Okay, so to do a clove hitch, what you want to do first is to hold the loose end in your left hand, make your pistol with your right hand, put it underneath, pinch with your thumb. You're going to take the back of your hand and turn it away from yourself. So the first loop you'll have is very simple. The short tail is overlapping on top of the long strand. Okay? Do the same exact thing again, make a pistol, turn your hand away from yourself, and the second loop lays on top of the first loop. You know you've done it right if you have two loops and the two tails are going in opposite directions and they're pinched between the two cords. Okay, we take that loop then and we wrap it around the bench horse. We pull the two tails in opposite directions, and now it's on there nice and snug. Okay? So what we need to do then is to do a figure-8 wrap around the bench horse. So we go over the far side. Okay, and we want to get this nice and snug. We don't want it to be loose. We want it to be tight. So as we break it over the opposite edge, push our thumb down hard, pinch it with our finger, and that friction will hold it in place. Wrap it around the far side of the bench horse, and here again we pull it nice and tight. Pinch it with your thumb. When you wrap it behind the clove hitch so that we're getting good pressure in from both sides. Okay? Go one more time, so we'll have two figure-8 loops. And as we finish, we just wrap it once, twice, 3 times. On the third time, just pull a bite of rope, come around again, push a loop through there, and just pinch it. Okay? And that'll hold in place with the friction. Okay, we're going to do that for all of these. Okay, so we make our clove hitch, slide it over the bench horse, pull it snug, okay, position our wood, tight over the far side, tight over this side behind the clove hitch, tight again, wrap it once, twice, 3 times, pinch, snug. Okay, and I'll show you afterwards how to put these cords away properly. Clove hitch. Obviously with the 3 bench horses, we want the middle one to be centered in the panel. The two outside ones should be pretty close to the edges, about an inch in from the end is good. Okay. Once we have that pinched, that's our setup. Now these are snug. Okay, they're not loose, they're tight. Okay, but they're not tight enough, and that's where the wedges come in. So the wedges are going to be staggered so that we have them in opposite directions. So the middle one will put towards me, and the two outside ones will put away from me. Doesn't matter which way you do it. Important to realize that the wedges have, the bottom edge have packing tape on them. That way we don't end up gluing the wooden wedge to our panel when the glue sets. Okay, so we simply pull up in the middle of our figure eight, push our wedge in. First one we'll put in just lightly. Do the same thing on the two outside ones. Again, you can see they're going in opposite directions. Once they're all in loosely, then we can cinch them up nice and tight. Okay, and that puts a good deal of clamping pressure on that seam in the middle, and it's held together really well, and our panel stays nice and flat. And we let that glue up for about an hour, let the glue dry, and then we should be good to go. Of course, that's our dry run. We need to do the real thing. So to do that, we know now how our process is going to work. We can take our wedges out. We know that our rope, our cords are long enough. We have our clove hitches already done, so we don't need to worry about that while we're doing our glue up. To pull these out, just pull on the loose end and it will unravel. You keep your cords nice and neat and tidy so they're not tangled when it comes time for the real glue. When you do the actual glue up, I've put a triangle, carpenter's triangle, in the center of our panel so I know which two edges will always go together. All I need to do is using just plain regular yellow carpenter's glue. This is Type Bond 2, doesn't have to be that. Yellow carpenter's glue is fine. We just run a bead down each of these edges. Use your finger as a glue spreader. Spread it so there are no dry spots whatsoever, and on both sides. Put those two edges together, and we can then do our wet run. Bear in mind that with the glue in the seam there, the two pieces of wood will want to skate a little bit on each other, and just as you're doing your cords up, you want to keep your panel in position where you want it to be. Okay? So that's how you do your wet run. When you're ready to put everything away, don't leave this on the bench, getting messy and tangled and so on. We want to put everything away neat and tidy. So the clove hitch just simply slides off the bench horse and pulls apart. Okay, just wrap up these cords neatly. Put our thumb up in the air, drape the tail in our palm of our hand. Okay, put out your little finger and wrap it in a figure eight around your little finger and your thumb until you have a bit of a tail here. Okay, that's more than we need. Take that off carefully, keep it neat and tidy. And we take that tail and wrap it around a few times in the center, so you've got a little bundle. Don't tuck this loose tail in. We're just going to put it in our wood bin, and it'll stay put and stay neat and tidy. And that's wedge and cord clamping. Very simple, inexpensive, easy to use. This can be used for everything from putting together a wood surfboard to putting together the soundboard of a guitar, of an acoustic guitar. Very useful technique.